Welcome to New Life Live with host and founder of New Life Ministries, Stephen Arterburn. New Life Live is dedicated to transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's Steve.
Hey everyone, Zach Matchett here, filling in for the aforementioned Steve Arterburn. So glad you're joining us here today on New Life Live. You could be doing a lot of things with your time. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day, hanging out with us. I am joined today, once again, by Dr. Alice Benton. Hi, Alice.
Zach, we missed you the last couple of weeks. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good. I got away for a week. My wife and I went on an awesome anniversary trip. And then I had shoulder surgery. So I went from paradise to under the knife in less than 24 hours. So you will see me in my sling quite a bit here over the next month as I'm with you. We also are joined today by Becky Brown. Hi, Becky.
Hi, Zach. Hi, Alice.
Hello,
How are
Beck.
y'all?
Very
Glad to be back with all of you. And I wanted to start out our show today. You were sharing with me, Alice, before we jumped on the air about something that your family was doing that I thought was really interesting. And I thought it'd be good to pass it to you.
Well, we believe in the 12 steps of recovery, and we're trying to teach our children how to apply them to our online behavior. And so the family group question recently was, have you hurt anyone on screen with your on-screen behavior? So as I was checking in with God about it and thinking, nope, don't think I have, he reminded me, well, remember when you used to engage with those ex-boyfriends online and you were engaging in emotional infidelity? How about you check in with your husband about that one? It's something my husband and I have talked about extensively, but it's been years since I asked him if he's had any stirring about it, any thoughts or feelings, any fears arising from my on-screen behavior. It was harder to ask him than I thought it would be. I went through the process again of checking in on his heart and asking for forgiveness yet again and giving him permission that he can ask anything about what I'm doing on my screen. Because, folks, I messed up. I broke trust early on in my marriage, just staying in contact with ex-boyfriends and justifying it. And he and I are modeling, I'm so grateful he's willing to, we're modeling for our kids how to do this confession and forgiveness process, because we will mess up and they will too. And we want them to see how to repair when we do make these mistakes.
Yeah, that's great. Dr. Anthony Bradley is a guy I follow, writes a lot about fatherhood. Is probably more of his specific kind of niche, if you will, but he writes a lot about parenting and family. He says that, I can't remember if I've shared this before, but he says that parents should be the CROs of their family, and what the CRO is Chief Repentance Officer.
Ooh, I like that.
And because I think repentance is probably the best witness and best model for us to give for those of us that are parents to our kids, or if we're a parent figure of any kind, because that is a uniquely Christian way to live, is to confess sin and to repent. We have mainstream resources for rebuking sin, clearly, that are Christian and non-Christian. Anybody, it's easy to like call out somebody else, but what's uniquely Christian is to say, I have failed and I'm going to make it right. And there's contrition there, but then there's also the step of repentance to actually do it. Becky, you want to add anything in there? I think this is a really healthy thing for families to model.
Well, yeah, but you guys, I've got them out of the house now. So it's a whole, you guys are in the process of raising them. But I have said many times, I will pay for any therapy that my kids need because I was their parent. And it's going along that same line of keeping those short accounts of, we know that we don't do it all right all the time, but we can be open to the fact that we are human. And then we lead the way for them to seek help when they make failure, because they will. I mean, it's just part of the human experience.
And most of the people I've spoken with have said, my parents never confessed anything to me, never apologized, maybe a deathbed confessional, but those are the lucky and the few. Folks, let's set a higher standard for ourselves. We actually build trust and respect with our children when we show them that we're broken and we are willing to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, and how many conversations in clinic have we had with people about their mom and dad? Like it's something that they struggle with. And so we want to get ahead of that.
That's great. Thanks, ladies, for sharing that. That's super helpful and practical, I think, for anybody listening if you're a parent figure of any kind. So we're going to come back after this break, get to some phone calls. But thanks again for joining us here today on New Life Live with Zach Matchett, Alice Benton, and Becky Brown.
We knew our marriage was broken, but we didn't know how to fix it.
The New Life Intimacy and Marriage Workshop is coming to Dallas, Texas, October 21st to the 23rd.
It has transformed our lives, our marriage. You have reached our home. You have helped transform our lives.
Join Steve Arterburn.
It's been a dream of mine for a long time to help people to grow more intimately together, and we believe that everybody has room to grow in the intimacy level of their life.
And Milan and Kay Yurkovich.
We help couples understand how their attachment style is sabotaging their current relationship. And then we teach them how to create comfort in a relationship.
To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or go to newlife.com.
Thank you for giving us a pathway where we can humble ourselves and say, Lord, we need help. Help us fix it. And we thank you for that.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE for more information. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for joining us. Zach Matchett here, filling in for Steve Arterburn. I'm joined by Dr. Alice Benton and Becky Brown. And I want to let you know that this is the last day that you can save some money, $200 actually, on the Intimacy and Marriage Workshop that we have coming up on October 21st. Becky, I don't know if you want to add anything about what this Intimacy and Marriage Workshop is about for anybody that might be interested.
Listen, we hear so many comments on the other side of the workshop that we have helped marriages heal. We just heard a commercial at the break about this, because we're not just saying be nice and love each other. We're literally giving you tools to understand why the disruption in the marriage or the disconnection is happening, and then show you a way forward of how to get it done. And, we're getting to the end of 2022. And if you are married and you haven't done anything for your marriage this year, this may be the perfect weekend for you to join us in Dallas and really make a difference in your marriage, which ultimately will affect your family as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well said. There's actually another little note here that one of the attendees that went to this recently said they answered the questions that I was afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And that it's a safe place to get help and to ask those questions that maybe you would think would be easy to bring up in the confines of your own home, but for whatever reason you're avoiding it, or don't want to talk about it, or it's too painful. And you come to a space like this, it's a safe place to unpack some of those things and to talk in a way that is helpful and edifying to your marriage. And so today's the last day to save $200 on this workshop. The workshop is on October 21st. So if you get signed up today, newlife.com, you will save $200. Man, your marriage is worth it. Do not procrastinate. Not just on the discount, but don't procrastinate on actually putting the work in to really taking care of what God has entrusted you with to steward, which is your marriage relationship and the family that maybe you are a part of. And so I want to encourage you to take part in that. Let's go ahead and get to a call or two here. We're going to go to Mike first. Mike's listening to us in Arizona. Hey, Mike, welcome to New Life Live. How can we help you today?
Yes, this is Mike. I heard a long time ago in 1996, I listened to this program, and they talked about that sometimes God uses dreams. I heard other people say, and I don't remember what scripture it is, that God doesn't use dreams. That's partially to think about that.
Yeah, so is your question directly about, are you experiencing any sort of dreams where you feel like God may be speaking to you? Is there anything specific around that?
I sometimes feel that some of the things that I've done, some of the things I'm not proud of doing, people are, telling me about this, and, I hear about it in the dreams. And I am calling people and asking their forgiveness and forgiving them for things that they've done.
Alice, what do you think?
Very good.
Mike, you and I are both in the amends-making process, and I'm so proud of you that you're doing that as well. And I think there's a few factors in answering your question about dreams, because we certainly have biblical evidence that God absolutely gave direct messages, although clouded in a lot of symbolism in dreams to Joseph, for instance. Both Joseph's, the second head of Egypt, but also the stepfather of Jesus. So we do know that God uses dreams. But we also know that dreams are part of the brain's process of cleaning up and storing information in the correct places in the brain. And God has given us this amazing ability where our brain holds on to our unfinished business. It's almost like we have a to-do list in our heads, and those mistakes we've made, the people we've harmed, our brain keeps a tally and reminds us in different ways. Hey, you have not yet done the reparation work with this person. And that can come up through the subconscious in dreams, and it comes up when we're triggered or reminded of things during the day. And it's part of both God and the process and the design He's given us to help us continue on that spiritual path of recovery so that we clean up our side of the street. And what we often find is once we finish that spiritual emotional task, it then is removed from our mental to-do list, and it doesn't bother us in the same way that it used to. So these recurring thoughts are usually a sign we're being called to action.
Yeah, Becky, how would you encourage Mike, just as Alice said there, that this may be almost kind of a downloading of data that's, whether experiences or people or conversations or mistakes or whatever. How would you encourage Mike to move forward with some next steps to not just reckon with maybe what the dream is revealing, but can it just stay in dream? Sometimes we have dreams. It's just like, I don't even know what that was about, or I can't remember it half the time. But when they're vivid like this, it does shake you emotionally. And so what are some next steps that you would encourage Mike to do?
Well, there's another part of that dream work is the fact that sometimes trauma can affect us in that way, that our dreams can actually be painful or triggering recollections of things that have happened to us or things that we have done. But along the same lines that Alice is talking about, it's important to really process that with a therapist or with somebody who does, like every eye movement desensitization and reprocessing or brain spotting. There are different ways that you can kind of work that out. And it would just depend on the type of dream. Just like you just said, Zach, sometimes we have these random dreams that have nothing to do with anything. It's just our brain kind of whatever. And we see so many things during the day. We are bombarded by media of all different kinds. And so our brain takes that in. And I think it's important to find a place of, just where you can have some space to kind of download that, whether it be with a therapist, practicing meditation on, with God's word, and all of those things together can really make a difference. But I agree with you, Alice. I love the amend-making process that he is engaged in.
Yeah.
And Mike, when we think we're getting a message from God, those two ways Becky's pointing out to check it. We look at what God has already said. We check the Bible because He's never going to tell us to do something that goes against His established word and biblical principles. And then the Bible itself tells us to check in with wise counsel, and that a multitude of counselors will help to keep us on the right track. But it does sound to me like you're correctly interpreting your dreams and you're taking action to repair the harm that you caused by some of your historical decisions that you made. We're proud of you, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and think too, like, obviously, as you said, Alice, to begin, and just from the pastoral side of things, where I would say is that, there is scriptural precedent for God speaking in dreams, and you mentioned a couple of examples. I also would say to the person that's experiencing the dream is to think through, because our mind can play tricks on us, right? And this is why the wise counsel piece, like nobody should interpret a dream in isolation. Like nobody should just be the judge and jury of like, this is exactly what this means. This is probably what this is referring to. And not to say that you wouldn't be able to pinpoint it. You might be able to, but I just, so much of this walk as a Christian, and for those that are, is in community. And if we're dealing with past, dealing with hurt, dealing with trauma, and it comes up in a dream in more of the quote subconscious or unconscious parts of our day where we're sleeping, there are verses about troubled mind, and setting our minds on things above. And even when we're sleeping, there is a way to be able to sleep at peace at night. So that is connected. There is a theology there that I think that we can get more in touch with, but to not necessarily assume that because God spoke to Joseph, in the Old Testament in a dream, or because God warned Mary and Joseph about what Herod was going to do, and that's why He told them to flee, all these things, like, just because that happened doesn't mean it automatically means that must be what's happening in this situation. But it also don't want to go the other way and say, well, this is probably completely removed from that situation, or God did that for them in the Bible, not for me. And that them and us mentality, I think, is also detrimental too, because God is still active and working in the world. I think too, with Mike, I would say there's probably some healing that you're doing, and I want to send you Healing as a Choice, as a resource.
Great idea.
And I think that I would hope that as you're doing this kind of reparation type work that Alice said, and making amends and kind of atoning for mistakes and just trying to find some peace in that there can be some healing, and that you can experience that. And when your head hits the pillow at night, that you'll hit the pillow and you'll sleep and you'll be at peace, and that there won't be this kind of waking up panicked about what you thought or what was said to you in the dream, or maybe a past memory. That would be my prayer for you.
The best,
I think there's the
best pillow is a clear conscience. I think Benjamin Franklin might have said that.
I thought that was on the coffee mug that you were holding, Alice. I was like, that's very quotable. Nice job. Becky, what were you going to say?
There is a psalm, and I think it's Psalm 63, that talks about when I lay my head down at night, my mind thinks on you, I rest in you. And I've actually suggested that to so many folks, because we do get in a place where whether the dreams are from trauma or from our past, disruptive sleep can then begin other problems. We have to have a good night's sleep. And so meditating on God's word is really, really helpful. But you're right, Zach, it has to be with community and with a counselor.
Yep. Well said. Mike, thanks for calling in. I think that's something that a lot of people relate to, because all of us try to get a good night's sleep, and inevitably the mind is at work. And so thanks for doing something that's really practical. I think is going to resonate with a lot of people. Let's go to our next call here. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Please correct me if I don't say it right. I think this is Krupa, I think is how you pronounce it, calling from Colorado. Welcome, Krupa, to New Life Live. How can we help you today?
Hi. So my name is Krupa, as you stated.
Okay, awesome.
So one of my friends, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sure.
Okay. So one of my friends actually is going through a tough time in his marriage and life, and they have been married for 17 years. And last couple of years, what happened was this woman started acting weird, and recently found out that she moved out of the home and staying with a woman and having a lesbian relationship, and stayed in that home. But the other woman was also married, and then she wanted to divorce, and then that man is kicking them out of their home. So now she wants to come to the home where my friend and his 4 children live. And she is abusing my friend and his children. And how does he protect? His question is, how does he going to protect him and his children, and what to do? Brother is with me right now, actually. Isha, can you talk?
So, my question is, how can I protect my children from this?
Thank you for your question. Thanks for calling in today. And Krupa, thanks for being a good friend to call in on behalf of him today. Becky, I'll throw it to you first. I mean, it sounds like there's 2 families involved, clearly, not just the 2 people that are involved in, I guess, the relationship piece, but just there's kids involved. This is another example that these things don't happen in a vacuum. What would be your approach to this?
Well, the first step is obviously the boundary in the family home where the kids are. If there's threat to the children, even in an emotional way, because sometimes we will kind of dismiss the emotional or disruptive emotional abuse that occurs when there is drama going on in the home just because somebody's not being hit. And what we need to take into account is the disruption that's occurring. And it's okay for you to say, this is our house and this is not acceptable in our house. And so if you're going to be here, this is how this is going to work. And it's so hard to set those boundaries. It is so hard. We hear from so many people in all different kinds of relationships that have a really hard time saying, I'm not okay with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the person who is offensive or offending just will bombard them. And so that would be step 1, is to decide what is going to be allowed in the house and what's not going to be allowed. If you are wanting to provide shelter to her, that's okay, but you have some boundaries about, what's going to happen in the house, how you're going to speak to the kids, all of those kind of things. Now, if there's nothing that can be acceptable as far as behavior within the house, then you're just going to say, I'm sorry, it's not going to work for me. And you're going to have to figure out another place to live.
Yeah. Alice, you want to speak to maybe that boundary piece or anything else that you'd want to add there?
Your heart must just be torn in so many directions as you wonder how to even communicate with your children about what's happening and whether or not it's safe or good for the family to have their own mom back in the home again. But I would recommend that you don't treat her affair any differently because it's a homosexual affair rather than a heterosexual affair.
Yeah.
And I would want you to let your wife know that you need her to tell the kids about the decisions that she's making depending on their age and being careful about age-appropriate disclosures, but that she should be explaining about her relationship with this woman. If your wife won't tell, then it does fall upon you to tell. Whatever you've told your children so far, they probably know more than you suspect, and they need to hear from you what your plan and intentions are, we're going to love mom, we're going to pray for mom, but we're also not going to let unsafe decisions in our home.
That's great. We'll be right back.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have Christ-centered partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Chris Williams on coaching.
Oftentimes I get asked, what is the difference between therapy and coaching? The biggest difference between the two is that a therapist is going to be looking for a diagnosable mental health condition, whereas a coach is going to look at a particular issue and help a person work through that.
If you need a coach, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
If you're looking at an issue in your life that you just kind of want to change, whether it be your weight or leadership or other areas of behavioral patterns, check out coaching. There can be some really, really helpful things for you.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 and talk to us about getting a New Life coach. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for joining us today on New Life Live. Zach Matchett here with Dr. Alice Benton and Becky Brown. If you're listening to us today, thanks so much for joining us. We are listening to Krupa, who is calling on behalf of his friend who is married, and the friend his wife just admitted to an affair. And there's also some abuse situations. It's just really, really complex. And I just love that we're here to take phone calls of people just really in painful situations. And sorry we had to go to a break, but Alice, I wanted to throw back to you to let you kind of wrap up your final point there.
One of the problems that we hear about much too frequently is tolerating an affair, tolerating any kind of unhealthy behavior for too long. And God tells us a lot about not tolerating, but rather taking a strong stance, and sometimes having to take even legal action to protect the children. And so if the wife is determined to continue in the affair, it may have to lead to different levels of separation, and perhaps even a legal separation. Those kind of consequences can sometimes motivate the unrepentant party to change their ways, whereas tolerance enables this kind of behavior to continue.
Yeah. I think I want to send you, Krupa, obviously for your friend and their family, a couple of resources. One is Take Your Life Back, and then the other is How We Love Our Kids. And because, again, the Take Your Life Back could maybe speak more directly to repairing maybe the infidelity in the relationship there, and to maybe make amends, or at least to try to work in that way. And the second thing is how do we love our kids. Again, we cannot underestimate the impact our decisions have on the children that are in our lives, whether they are, we're a parent figure and we're grandparents, we're aunts and uncles, we're adopted parents, whatever, that, as Alice shared earlier, being able to tell them the truth, to not hide, in an age-appropriate way, tell them the truth, but not to hide or just conceal, these types of things of why they're not around and why, mom is living with somebody else or with somebody else. I mean, those types of questions, we would rather be the authority to give clarity rather than allow ambiguity to take root in a child's mind, which could be for a lot of things that aren't end up being true, and that could actually do more damage down the road.
Yeah.
And so I hope those two resources are helpful. Go ahead, Becky.
I want to add one more thing. One of the things that we get comments about all the time is when we have a situation like this, that some of our listeners will say, well, why didn't you recommend X, Y, and Z? And one of the things I want to say to this situation is, if you have not already addressed this with a counselor, that could be step one. Yeah. We don't know that you've done this, but I think that it would be worthwhile. And I tell all kinds of couples, when you're going through a separation, let's say that you think that your marriage is done, there's no way anything's going to change. I would say you still have to do the work to finish, because you're parenting together. It's not like you leave a spouse and then sometimes that happens in most dramatic situations, but often you have couples who are going to continue to co-parent. And so if there's no resolution of how this marriage ends, it just continues the pain for everybody involved. Yeah. And so if you haven't already sought a counselor, we've got counselors in that area that we can connect you with, and maybe even take, just the risk to go to the intimacy and marriage workshop, because I know that seems extreme, but if we can rescue a marriage, if we can save and heal the marriage, that would be the best next step.
And Becky, we've had couples come to Intimacy and Marriage who have divorce paperwork already written up, but they have miraculous breakthrough in the weekend and end up reconciling. So that still is a hope and a possibility. Right.
A lack of therapy, a lack of recovery, a lack of counseling will almost ensure an exaggerated form of whatever the bad consequences are. It will make them worse, and so you need to make sure that you're leaning hard into that. And so, Krupa, again, thank you for being a wonderful friend to call on behalf of a family and a friend who is struggling. I want to get to Holly next. Holly's been patiently waiting. Thank you. She listens to us on the podcast, which is awesome. You can listen to us on newlife.com or anywhere you find podcasts. Listen to us in Ohio. Hi, Holly. Welcome to New Life Live. How can we help you today?
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
I can. What's up?
Okay. So real quick, I am 53. My mother was killed in a car accident with me in the back seat and my dad driving.
Oh, wow.
When I was 10 years old. Oh. So it totally changed my life. I was an only child, and they were in their 50s at the time. In fact, my mother and I are the same age at this point. Anyways, my dad looked at me when he came home from the hospital. He didn't get to go to the funeral. I picked out her casket at 10. Nobody, I feel like, really protected me back then. But my dad looked at me when he came home, and they placed him on the bed, and he said, "What are we going to do now, Holly?" And so the dynamic changed for me right then and there, that I became the adult, and he became the dependent. And so my dad married about 13 months later to a woman that ended up, her kids were abusive to me physically, and she was emotionally abusive to me. And so then that ended after 3 years, and then I got married at 19, had a baby, had another child, and then that ended. That was abusive. So I'm in a really good place now. I've been through a lot of counseling. The thing that I'm noticing at this age and with my walk with the Lord is this. Sometimes when I'm driving and I'm going through an intersection, because we were hit at the intersection, I see myself getting hit, or I worry about my like a trip coming up, and people will say, "Oh, you're going to have so much fun on that trip." And in my head, I go, "No, this could be the last trip." Yeah. So my question is, do I have PTSD? Do I need EMDR? What could help me to finally get through this after 42 years.
Holly, thank you for calling. I am so sorry that you have walked through such personal hardship and suffering, and yet I'm so thankful that you called today. Because when we call and we voice our pain, I think we can really find help. So I want you to stay on the line. We're going to go to break, and I'm going to let Becky and Alice jump in here and see what they can do to help you. We'll be right back.
My husband was involved with a pornography addiction.
He was unfaithful. I called the wedding off. He stepped out on the marriage and ended up having a child.
The Restore Workshop is designed for a woman dealing with a man's sexual addiction issues.
My husband is a recovering sex addict. There were strip clubs, other ladies.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Workshop will equip you with support and tools to help you through.
Restore has empowered me and has given me the tools to work through my anger, work through my pain, work through my confusion, and help me realize that I am worthy.
Being here and being surrounded by people who get it has given me my power back.
The Restore Workshop is coming to Washington, D.C. November 11th through the 13th. To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or online at newlife.com.
Thank you, Restore. You have changed my life forever.
I was really living a very anxiety-filled life. I did go to Take Your Life Back. That's why I continue to support the ministry with the hope that not only am I helping my own situation, that I'm helping others as well.
You can help New Life stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the new member thank you gift of the 1-year Bible for men or the 1-year Bible for women. These Bibles combine the best-selling daily Bible reading format with 2-minute daily devotionals written to create a one-of-a-kind devotional Bible that you'll love. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, and discounts on workshops. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for joining us today. I'm here, Zach Matchett, with Dr. Alice Benton and Becky Brown. We have Holly on the line. Holly, again, I just want to reiterate, thank you so much for calling today. Holly shared just a really painful experience from her childhood of losing her mother in a car crash, and just the things that kind of fell from that decision, how the dynamic between her and her father, that relationship changed, and how there was then another marriage that was abusive, and then led Holly into adulthood, getting married and having children early, and just all those things. So we kind of had to cut off there because of the break. But I wanted to let Alice jump in here first, Holly, because I think there are some things that we could probably say to you that would encourage you to say that you are very strong and that you are doing things incredibly well. But I know that from your end of the phone, it's just like, yeah, right. Like I need some like real help to like get through these things that are very, very hard and challenging. So Alice, what would you share with Holly today?
Oh, Holly, we were shaking our heads as you listed off all the abuse, and you're only telling us a part of what you have been through. And as you asked the question about post-traumatic stress disorder, what difference would it make to you if you officially had the diagnosis?
Maybe it would explain why I am so afraid of doing certain things. There's so many things I'm afraid of taking the trip. Or it was a long time until I could get on a plane because I knew that if I got on it, it was going to crash, and it doesn't. But maybe, I don't know. I've gone to counseling for so many years and over so many things, but I just feel as though, is there something left that I have to do? And I journal every day, and I pray every day. And I wonder,
as of late,
healing?
Does your fear hold you back from driving, from traveling? It used to. Does it anymore?
No. It never held me back from driving. But the thought's always there as I'm driving, will this be my last trip? This could happen. But it doesn't hold me back. And now I'll fly anywhere. That doesn't hold me back. I just did it. So, but I have that fear that I think with my kids, my adult kids, are they call me when you get there? It's like,
yeah.
As to your clinical question, you're an unusual case, Holly, in that your courage and your perseverance helps you to push through your fear. And part of the diagnostic criteria for either PTSD or some of the anxiety disorders is that there's an avoidance of those things that induce fear, and there's an impairment in your ability to function. And there may be some of that, or historically perhaps there was some of it. But it sounds to me like although you live with the fear, you actually overcome the fear and engage in the activity anyhow. And yet, I agree with you that the form of therapy, that EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, that can get below to the subconscious level, and it can work on that hardwired fear that is so automatically in your brain when you cross an intersection. Okay. And so EMDR can be helpful with that. There's another therapy I also want you to consider. It's called systematic desensitization, and it helps you break down the steps that you need to get through to continue to face the fearful experiences that you have, although you continue to overcome and do these activities anyhow, which is amazing.
Yeah, Becky, what would you add for Holly here?
And that helps.
Go ahead, Holly.
Thank you.
What were you going to say, Holly?
No, I was just saying that really helps me. And I mean, it parlays into people too. Like I think to myself, like my husband that I'm married to now he is wonderful, and we've been married 10 years, and he's so good to me. And sometimes I look at him and I'm like, is he breathing? Is he breathing? Oh, and then I pre-plan. I'm like, well, this is what I'll do. I know what to do. I'll call the funeral home out. Like this happens a lot.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. You've been to counseling, but your counselor has not diagnosed you with this yet? Because it's obvious that it's trauma.
No.
It's obvious that it's trauma, and that's what's triggering all these things. And what happens in our brains is that the more we repeat those thought processes, the deeper it gets ingrained into our, in our brain wiring. It literally is. So it makes sense to me that you're checking and you're looking at these things because you've had a traumatic experience. Going back to what you said about your dad kind of saying, okay, it's all up to, what are we going to do now? It was his own grief experiences. And so, I would say, Holly, if you could enter into a counseling process of recovery, and I know that may seem so strange, but sometimes we can go to counseling that is crisis related. And what we can do instead is get into a recovery process so that your brain starts to change. EMDR would help, just like what Alice was talking about. But I think that to underscore the fact that you've been able to move on in life, which is really great, but you're still not free, is where the work really needs to go. You're journaling, but if you're just journaling the same thoughts that you're having, you're kind of planting those seeds even further. And you want to get to a place where you can look at those thoughts, but they don't impact you to the place that they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And I want you, Holly, to look into this kind of supplements and or medications that are prescribed for anxiety disorders. And you can do that in a couple different ways. Okay. Our friend, Dr. Daniel Amen, has some free brain assessments that are online. You can look that up, and then he recommends particular supplements to take. Antidepressants also treat anxiety and are very safe medications, even to take long term. And that can just turn down that hyper alert level that your brain operates on.
Yeah, and I think, too, I would say, and it's got to be challenging because there's unique elements of your story and your experience, Holly. And on the one hand, I think any of us that have a painful experience in life, there is uniqueness to why that continues to come up, very much similar to what you said, which is, I'm in the car and I go through the intersection, those memories, I can't help it. Those memories kind of come back. Or if I'm going on a trip of any kind, airplane, or checking on your kids, did you get to your destination? Did you make it okay? Because I think deep down, at the very least for all of us, is just this awareness that there is a sobering thought, the fragility of life, that it really can be gone in an instant, but that there's some unique things with your situation. And this is what these ladies are trying to say, is that to move into some of these techniques in a counseling environment, whether it be medication or the techniques they mentioned, and even maybe a recovery group of some kind, of support group where you're actually kind of talking these things out, and not just in the one-to-one environment of the counseling setting, but to also find refuge in just voicing these things, of course, finding safety in that, and finding the encouragement that you need. That who is the person that you call if you feel tense about something, you're getting in the car, you're going on a trip, whatever, and you feel that sense of this might be my last trip, I think is the words that you said. Who is somebody you would call to talk with them about that? It could be a counselor, but also a close friend or a mentor or something like that, just to kind of breathe, ask for a word of encouragement and prayer, and then move forward. I'm not saying that slam dunk that's going to help every time, but those are some things in the everyday that I think can really help push you forward.
Well, and Zach, you said a couple of things that just prompted me. So Holly, you have survived every light that you've driven through up to this point, and you probably don't even think about that. You're still thinking about the ones that you might not make it through, even though you've overcome all of these. But the other thing is the significance of the fact that this was the year you said that your age is the same as when your mom passed away, and that's very significant. And so I don't think that that's something to overlook. But we'll be praying for you, and Healing is a Choice could be helpful for her as well.
Yeah, let's send you a copy of that, Holly. Thanks again for calling today. Before we get to break, Becky, I want to throw it to you. You know, when people give to New Life as a ministry and contribute financially, they make opportunities for people like Holly to get the resources and the help that they need. And I just want to throw it to you so you can kind of share a way that they can help.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I love to hear the testimonies of the folks who are giving to support New Life, because they give because it impacted their life, whether it was the radio program or a counselor or a workshop. They want to make sure that we are able to continue the ministry for years to come. And I think about one couple in particular who just, because of their own recovery, he was an alcoholic for many years. He got into recovery, got a counselor with us, and now they run a treatment center. Like it's a ministry, and they are giving back, and they still give to New Life and they're part of our Club New Life family, because they know what a difference it can make in the lives of so many people. And so, you know, if you've never given to the ministry before, maybe today's the day that you pick up the phone and you call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and say, you know what, I want to join Club New Life because I want to be part of the regular giving to support the ministry. Or maybe it's a one-time gift. Either way, we thank you for helping us help other people find hope and help in their life.
Yeah, you're making the opportunity available for somebody else just by simply sowing financially to the ministry. So thanks again for considering that. And I guess I just want to share this as we kind of wrap up this last call that Holly shared with me. You know, pain lingers really long. Unresolved pain can linger long into our lives. And we've got to understand that pain shapes us and forms us like nothing else can. And we're going to be better or worse for it. It does not leave us neutral in any way, shape, or form. And so if you're out there, whether it's something in your childhood, something in your past, something that was done to you, and you are still experiencing the pain and the hurt, the hardship of that, please, whether you're call 1-800-NEW-LIFE, find a counselor, get into a recovery group. Do not walk through that pain alone. You can make that happen by giving to New Life. We'll be right
back. I came into this thinking that my husband was the cause of many of our issues.
The New Life Intimacy and Marriage Workshop is coming to Dallas, Texas, October 21st to the 23rd.
But after learning about our attachment styles, I understood how our past hurts were playing into our present problems.
Join Steve Arterburn.
It's been a dream of mine for a long time to help people to grow more intimately together, and we believe that everybody has room to grow in the intimacy level of their life.
And Mylan and Kay Yurkovich.
We help couples understand how their attachment style is sabotaging their current relationship. And then we teach them how to create comfort in a relationship.
And New Life's group counselors will help you focus on the area that will benefit your marriage most. To register or to find out more, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Here at this workshop, we had our first ever conversation without yelling, blaming, and accusing.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Join New Life Ministries for a brand new one-day conference for women at the Museum of the Bible called Lumina. Join us for an unforgettable day with friends or the women's group from your church. At Lumina, you will be immersed in and surrounded by God's Word all day, including time in the World Stage Theater for worship led by Nicole C. Mullen. A powerful message from Bible teacher Jen Wilkin that will leave you empowered to live into your calling. plus a private group tour of the Museum of the Bible. There's nothing like it. This one-day event, Lumina, is happening on Thursday, November 3rd or Friday, November 4th. Pick the day that works best for you. Gather your friends and get your tickets at newlife.com. Hurry, special pricing ends soon, so visit newlife.com and click on the Lumina banner. Inspire your faith at Lumina, where women rise together. Learn more at newlife.com.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Thanks again for hanging out with us today on New Life Live. Zach Matchett here with Dr. Alice Benton and Becky Brown. And Becky just shared before the break just a way that you can give to New Life Live. And I want to encourage you, all the people that have called today are in really tough situations, desperate situations. And when you give to New Life, just know that you are making a direct impact, a direct difference to the people that we have the sacred opportunity to talk to on this program and offer resources and help to. And so please consider giving to New Life. You can also go to newlife.com if you want any more information on how to do that. I want to go to our next call, Tom. Tom is waiting patiently. He's been listening to us in Texas on KWRD. Hey, Tom, welcome to New Life Live. How can we help you today?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I have a desperate situation, I think. I have a 17-year-old daughter, and we do have a family history of mental illness. I guess I'll start with a little background that got divorced from her mom in 2015, and she was about 9 or 10, and I think that obviously had a big effect on her. But this is what she got attacked in December, assaulted, and she's seen several therapists, and she has been clinically diagnosed with PTSD. Oh, wow. But before that, she was also suffering from panic attacks, high anxiety. I don't know if bipolar or manic depressive. She's usually kind of high in the morning and then comes crashing down in the afternoon. She makes statements, and I'd have a nephew that killed himself when he turned 18, so I'm like terrified that she might do that. But she says stuff like, I just don't want to be here anymore. And, stuff like that. I'm not a therapist or a doctor, but I lived with her mom for 15 years, and in my opinion, she's a toxic person, and she's a narcissist, and my daughter and her haven't spoken like a year, and it's just a big mess with that. But the trouble I'm having is I've taken her to several therapists. She thinks they're just out for the money, that they don't really help her. She's been on a few medications, but after 2 or 3 weeks or a month, she'll stop that. I can't get her to get into a therapist, unless I guess I can tie her up and drag her, but she doesn't want to see a therapist. But when she was attacked at nighttime, so when it gets dark, she's afraid. She starts having these panic attacks. She's afraid to go I can barely get her out of the house. Once in a while, I can get her to go for a drive, listen to music, but it starts to get dark, she starts panicking.
Yeah. So your question, Tom, is just sorry to cut you off. Tom, is your question then just what would be the best next step to try to get her into some sort of a therapy or recovery group, or is it more specific than that?
No, it's basically that. And then I do have another question, and because I'm trying to do all this research, trying to help her out, trying to find out, what I can think. And then I've read that, I guess some of the therapists thought it was a chemical imbalance, but then I've read that that's just a theory that hasn't actually been proven. So I wanted to get y'all's idea of that as well. But yes, basically, how do I get her help, and do I make her go? I can't. Yeah. It seems to be very hard to get her to trust. She has trust issues. She's very angry all the time.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot that's happened to her in her life. And Tom, thanks for calling. And on behalf of your child, Alice, I'll throw it to you first. What would be the best next step here for Tom?
Tom, I hope that you're modeling getting your own therapy and that you let her know you're doing so, that you want to be a better parent to her. You know some of her struggle has to do with the choices that you made, even if it's not entirely your fault, but just we're all imperfect parents. So I want you to model for her and invite her to come into your therapy to give the therapist feedback about your shortcomings as a father and see if she'll accept that. That can sometimes lower the defenses of a person unwilling to let the attention be on them in a therapy session. I'm sure you've considered the medication route, but I would certainly ask if she's willing to see a physician. Does she trust physicians anymore? Tom, in my experience, both clinically and personally, whether or not you can directly tie it to a chemical imbalance, and there actually are blood tests you can take for this, antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication help immensely, and they have developed so far that they're very safe medications to be able to take. You might have to consider leverage, what resources of yours you'll only allow her to access if she's willing to at least see a medical doctor for her anxiety. And lastly, if you believe her to be suicidal, then it may have to be involuntary that she receives treatment, whether you call 911, whether you take her to the emergency room. If there are signs of suicidal ideation, take them very seriously, and I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Becky, anything you would add?
Yes.
Well, Tom, you guys need a redo. Like, there's just been so much pain and struggle. And then on top of that, this assault, which is adding fuel to the fire. And she's 17, which is a whole nother thing, right? And so you've got family history, but along the same lines as what Alice is talking about, it may be that not just you do your own work. I'm thinking that if you had a family therapist for both of you, like you start together and then move that way. I also would recommend a treatment center. We have connections with treatment centers across the country for young women who get into these kind of situations, and they just need a restart. They literally, she's having anxiety because of everything that's been happening to her. She doesn't feel like she's in control. So that's the reason why she's like, I'm not going to counseling. I'm not taking this. And then she wants to end it because she's got these big feelings and doesn't know how to sort them out or what to do with them. And we talk a lot about family therapy because, you guys are going through this together, Tom. You're scared for her and you're also feeling disconnected. So those are just a couple of the things that I would suggest moving forward.
When things like this happen, ladies, I'd love to get your insight on this, and maybe this could help Tom too. But when something traumatic things happen, it can be physically debilitating. Legitimately, where it removes desire to do things, to go out, to live life, to do. Is that also just as quote unquote clinical in its diagnosis to move forward, or is that more of just a symptom of maybe what's going on? What do you guys think?
It's both. It's both of those things, don't you think, Alice?
I agree.
I just think it's a symptom, but it's also telling you what's going on, and I think our emotions are there to give us a little bit of direction, but they are not good direction givers. And so that's where the tricky part comes in.
And I think it's important to tell our children of any age, I really can't make you do anything, but I'm going to do everything I can to influence you, to model for you, and I will give you rewards and consequences depending on the choices that you make.
Yeah, well said. Is there a resource that we can send to Tom? I mean, obviously, when you're calling on behalf of an adult child, and you talked about the dynamic right there, Alice, just the idea, I can't make you go, but I'm doing everything we can to get you to go.
I think
what would be a resource?
Understanding and loving a person with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay, what's the author of that book?
That one is Steve Arterburn and Johnson. I'm not sure the first name.
Okay, yeah, we would love to send you a copy of that, Tom. And again, I would encourage just go to newlife.com and think about the recovery thing that Becky talked about, and just the idea of getting into a group, getting treatment. Don't just assume, and this happens, like especially when our kids are hurting, we want to get them the help. We wanted them to get on their path to healing, and we're just going to be the cheerleader. And I think that there needs to be a fellow participation that happens in that healing journey, because nothing happens in a vacuum. If you found this show helpful in any way, please share this with someone. Share the podcast, New Life app, newlife.com, whatever you need to do to get the word out, to let people know that if they're struggling, they can find help. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again on Monday for New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for watching New Life Live. You know, New Life Live is a Christian counseling program where we deal with the hard questions about life, relationships, kids, free choice, freedom of will, whatever. It's all right there on New Life Live every day, every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to call into the live broadcast, you can find the schedule on newlife.com or click the social media link right below. You can see every episode of New Life Live on the New Life YouTube channel. Watch it with a friend, watch it later. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll never miss another episode. So if you want to listen on the go, download the app. The link is right below. And I hope if you need some information, if you want to get some help, you'll call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I'll see you next time.